We've got a good deal on beef this week. So we've got 1.25 kilos in total of lean beef. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook that, I'm going to dehydrate it, and then I'm going to vacuum seal that in jars in a way that's completely plastic free, and it's got a longer shelf life than it has in the freezer, and it's a much better quality product than anything you can buy in cans. Like you can get canned minced beef and all sorts. It's not great, it's terrible, you know, it's really bad quality stuff. But this is, you can do this with any beef, so you could go for really high quality pasture raised, you know, ethically sourced beef and do this and still get a really good palatable product at the end of it. It'll take up a fraction of the space of anything in your freezer or canned, but more importantly it's shelf stable. This is something that you can take the jar when you're done with it. It takes up a fraction of the space that even this does, you know, never mind the other pack as well. And the whole lot can get put on a shelf somewhere nice and dark and reasonably cool, so anywhere in the kitchen really, in this house anyway. And that is the shelf stable product that'll last for years. I mean literally years and years. You don't have to worry about rotating it particularly, it's never going to go off. And it's not susceptible to power cuts like stuff in the freezer or even in the fridge. Yeah, you haven't got to worry about rusting of tin cans, because that's an issue with long-term food storage. This is the best technique that I've come across for storing beef. Show you how we do it. That's the pan on. It's the beef in. Just wash my hands quick. So now we just bring that up to temperature. So that's cooked through now. You can see if I tilt that, it's quite a bit of liquid has come out of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some paper towels, some kitchen roll, and scrape it back from the edge. I'm going to absorb as much of that liquid as possible. So that's absorbed all the water and fat that's run out of the meat, but there'll still be a small amount of fat in this meat. There's 5% of fat out of the pack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, one-handed, this is really awkward, I'm going to dump that into the colander, and then, ooh, I'm not too steamed up. I've got a kettle of boiling water, and I'm just going to rinse that with boiling water to rinse out all the fat that's left in it. Now if you're going to be using it inside a couple of months, you don't need to do this. You are washing away a little bit of flavour. It's a bit of a compromise, but it does increase the shelf life of it. So that's that first batch done, so I'm going to dump that in a bowl. And then we'll do the next load. So that's the second batch done. So that you get a sense of the volume of it. That's quite a bit of minced beef. You can see how big this bowl is. It's a good size, you know, my hands aren't small. So now I'm going to put that into the dehydrator and dry it down. Now you don't need one as fancy as an Excalibur. The cheap round ones that you can get, perfectly good for this. They're not so good for things with sauces and stuff, but for just drying meat, they're ideal. So I'm going to spread that between 3 trays and put them back in, so that it's spread nice and thin. Now I don't necessarily need these liners for this, but you know, you can see, let me show you, you know, that mesh, once it's dried down, some of the smaller bits might drop through that, and I'd rather they didn't. So I've got them, I might as well use them. So I'm going to get the beef out onto the trays now. And thin, there's really not too much on it. So with that one in, you can see I've spaced them out. I haven't got all the trays in, there's every other one. So that hand's greasy. So put the front on, it's set at 68 Celsius, which is for meats, fish and jerky, and that's essentially what we're doing, we're just drying meat. So I'm going to turn that up to full, and we'll just see how long that takes. So I ran the dehydrator for about 6 hours, and this is what I'm left with. I put it all on the one tray just for the sake of showing, you know, how much the volume's reduced. And you can see that it's dry, it's brittle, until it crumbles, it snaps, it's bone dry. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put that into a jar, and this is a standard beetroot jar. You know, I usually take the labels off them, but I've left this on just so you can see it's just a beetroot jar that's been finished, it's been rinsed out, and now we're going to reuse it for food storage. And there it is. That is 1.25 kilo of dried beef in one jar. Next job is to vacuum seal it. So I've done a video on this before, so I don't do a complete walkthrough now. I'll put a link up if you're interested in seeing how this works, because it's a brilliant technique. So we just disconnect it, release the vacuum inside, ooh, and that just went down then. So you can see that's not making the sound anymore. That is now vacuum sealed. So we started out with 1.25 kilo of minced beef, low fat stuff. It's run through a little bit of processing, but this now is over a kilo of minced beef that all it has to be done is soaked in water or boiled in water, and it'll completely rehydrate, and it's pretty much indistinguishable from the original. You know, it's not everything dehydrates and then rehydrates well. This really does. So yeah, that is now completely shelf stable. It's vacuum sealed. That will keep for years. I've got spices in jars like this under the counter here in one of the cupboards that I've had for over 2 years, and there's never been any suggestion of the seal going. So we buy things in bulk and we store them that way because it's hermetically sealed. It's never going to go off. It's good virtually indefinitely. I mean, if you look at the shelf life on tin goods, you know, conventional metal canned goods, they're good for a couple of years now. You know, they don't have the old shelf life of 10 plus years, and they're using less metal in the cans, which is a good thing. You know, it's less material being used, but they just don't last as long. This is a good replacement for that sort of technology. This will last indefinitely. It's absolutely brilliant. I can't talk about it highly enough. Now, if you don't need to keep it for years and years, you don't need to worry about the scalding with boiling water to take out the last of the fat. I've taken it in that condition where I've just taken it off with kitchen roll, I've absorbed as much as possible, I haven't rinsed it, and I've just stuck it in a Ziploc bag, and I've eaten that 2 years later. Perfectly safe, still tasted and smelt perfectly fine, didn't get ill. Other people will tell you, you can't do that, you know, you'll get botulism and you'll die. Apply common sense. I'm not telling you it's safe. You know, you make your own decision about that, but I do it without any concern at all. So this stuff kept, you know, in a vacuum is going to be good for so much longer than that 2 year lifespan that I've already established with, you know, the dried meat. This stuff is essentially immortal. That's over a kilo of dried beef that I can put in the back of the cupboard, and it's good for when I need it, but it's, you know, it's not going to go off. It doesn't take up freezer space, which is always at a premium. It's brilliant.